lovely students, how are you all? A very hearty welcome to this mind-blowing platform, Physics Wallah. My name is Zupar Sharma and today we are going to learn about a very unique creature. You know, the unique creature's name is Mijbil. Today we are going to see the journey after this, this unique creature is domesticated. Yes, when this unique creature is domesticated by someone, the life of that person completely changes. This we are going to see in this chapter. Now let's find out. We'll have an overview, then line by line explanation, then important key points, and in the end, we are going to do homework as well. We are going to discuss homework from your sample paper. Okay, we are going to pick up a question from your sample paper which has come from this particular chapter, and we are going to discuss on that question. Now, the author of the story is Gavin Maxwell. In this story, the story tells us how his life altered after he decided to keep an otter. Here, he's taking us through his journey and his experiences with Mijbil or Mij the Otter. The author of the story, who is the author of the story? It's Gavin Maxwell. And in this story, what is he trying to explain? He is trying to tell us that how his life altered. Basically, here alter means how his life changed. How his life changed after he decided that he is going to keep Mijbil as a pet, okay, an otter as a pet. Here he is taking us through his journey. He is explaining us his whole journey, that how it all started and how is it going. He is telling us his experience with Mijbil, or as he fondly calls him, Mij the Otter. Okay, now let's find out. Early in the new year of 1956, I traveled to southern Iraq. By then, it had crossed my mind that I should like to keep an otter instead of a dog. And that Camus Fiona, ringed by water, a stone's throw from its door, would be an eminently suitable spot for this experiment. Now, before starting this chapter, I would like to tell you something about Gavin Maxwell. Gavin Maxwell had a dog earlier. He had a pet dog, but that pet dog died. Okay, so he decided that he is not going to keep another dog as a pet because that dog will constantly remind him of his previous dog. The previous dog died. You know, people can develop a lot of sensitivity towards their pets. People love their pets a lot. And when the pet dies, when it goes from their life is completely, empty. They become so sad, losing a pet is like losing the closest person to you. Pets are closest to their, to their owners, and when they die, this thing happens. So he was saying that I am not going to keep a dog as a pet, but I am going to keep otter as a pet. And when he decided that in 1956. In 1956, he said that when he went to Iraq, okay, he then said that it crossed my mind. It means it came in his mind, it struck in his mind that he will keep an otter instead of a dog. And that Camus Fiona is basically a place, a beautiful island. He is here talking about a beautiful island. A beautiful island. He is saying that a beautiful island which is near my house, ringed by water, because it is island, so it is ringed by water. It is basically surrounded by water. He said, now where is this Camus Fiona? It is at a stone's throw from the door. Stone's throw means it is nearby. It is very much nearby. It's nearby from his house. He said that there I'm going to keep otter as a pet. There I'm going to perform this experiment. This is obviously an experiment, keeping this unique, animal as a pet. So he had to do this experiment, and this experiment he decided to do in Camus Fiona, a beautiful island. Now, when I casually mentioned this to a friend, he as casually replied that I had better get one in the Tigris Marshes, for there they were as common as mosquitoes and were often tamed by the Arabs. When I casually mentioned, he casually means he normally, Normally, he started talking to his friend and he shared with his friend that, you know, I'm thinking that I should keep an otter as a pet. Now, his friend was not shocked at all. His friend said that, okay, it's very common. You just go to Tigris Marshes. Tigris Marshes is basically, what are marshes? You know what is marshes? Marshes is an area. It was an area in Iran or Iraq, you know, it was covered, and it is basically, you know, a place where there is a lot of algae. Okay, marshes is a area where there is a lot of algae. It is surrounded by water. So basically, now his friend said that it is as common as mosquitoes, as the mosquitoes are common. He actually wanted to say that this thing is very common. This thing is very common in this Tigris Marshes. Tigris Marshes basically here means swamp. It was a swamp in Western Asia. Okay, swamp in Western Asia where these were very common and were often tamed by the Arabs. Tamed by the Arabs means domesticated by the Arabs. Arabs used to basically keep them as pets. We were going to Basra to Consulate General to collect an answer all mail from Europe. Now he told that we were going to Basra. Basra is a place, it's a small town in Iraq. He said that we were going there to the Consulate General. You know what is Consulate General? Consulate General is basically the embassy. The embassy, you know what's an embassy? Embassy is a place, it is a particular, for example, in India, there are the embassies of other countries where you can go and where the people, for example, to be very precise, if there is a French person who is visiting to India and he has some problems, he has to, you know, get his visa done, or he is facing some problem in this country, he would go to that embassy. He would go to that embassy for the help, for his visa application and for everything and all his problems. He is going to visit that particular place, and that particular place is called an embassy. He also went to the Consulate General to collect his mail. Okay, to collect his mail that had come from Europe. At the Consulate General, we found that my friend's mail had arrived, but that mine had not. He saw that his mail hadn't arrived, but his friend's mail had arrived. Okay, this was the situation that he was explaining, that this happened with me at the embassy. I cabled to England, and when 3 days later nothing had happened, I tried to telephone. He said that I cabled to England. What do you mean by cable? Cable means sent a telegram. He said that I sent a telegram. Now this is quite an old chapter. We are basically talking about the times where the telegrams were very common. Okay, and there was no better communication way. Today we can send emails and faxes and everything, but at that time people had to send telegrams. So he sent a telegram to England, but 3 days later there was no response. So he decided that he has to make a call. He has to, you know, telephone to England. The call had to be booked 24 hours in advance. You know, this was, you know, it reminds us of a simpler time. You know, to call a particular place, you had to book a call 24 hours in advance. He was calling from Iraq to England, so he had to book the call in advance for 24 hours. On the first day, the line was out of order. On the second, the exchange was closed for a religious holiday. And on the third, there was another breakdown. So he could not contact them for 3 days. On the third day, the line was out of order. Out of order, it means that it had some problem. Okay, it was not working out of order. You know, even sometimes our line is also out of order. The network is not there. So there was no network. In the second, the exchange was closed. Telephone exchange. Telephone exchange is basically a place where the places are being, you know, where the calls are being placed from one place to another. So the telephone exchange was closed that day because of some religious holiday or something. And on the third day, there was a breakdown. My friend left and I arranged to meet him in a week's time. 5 days later, my mail arrived. Now, his friend left and they both decided that they are going to meet each other after 5 days. And after 5 days, after a week, after 5 days, now this person, Gavin Maxwell, he received a mail. I carried it to my bedroom to read, and there, squatting on the floor, were 2 Arabs. Beside them lay a sack that squirmed from time to time. They handed me a note from my friend. Here is your otter. Now what happened basically, his friend that had gone for a week, his friend sent him an otter. he received a mail, and in that mail he had an otter. I carried it to my bedroom. He carried the mail to his bedroom, and there, squatting on the floor. Squatting means, you know, the people were sitting on their hunches. Okay, they were sitting like that as you squat on the toilet. So they were squatting, they were sitting like that, and there was a sack beside them. Okay, there was a sack kind of thing, you know, there was a sack, and in that sack, basically, there was an otter. That is why it was squirming from time to time. Squirming means twisting. It was basically wriggling. Squirm means wriggled. It wriggled from time to time. It was wriggling. And on the note, simply his friend wrote, here is your otter. His friend knew that his friend Gavin Maxwell, he needed an otter. That is why he sent an otter for him. With the opening of that sack began a phase of my life that has not yet ended, and may, for all I know, not end before I do. It is in effect a thraldom to otters and otter fixation that I have since found to be shared by most other people who have ever owned one. Now what is he saying by opening that sack? When he opened that sack, he is saying that a phase of life began. A phase of his life began which has not yet ended. It means that when Gavin Maxwell was particularly, you know, writing this thing, that phase hadn't ended. It means that the otter was still there with him. Okay, he was still the proud owner of that otter while writing this piece of chapter. So he said that it had not ended and it may not end. He would end before that. He was saying that he was so much attached with the otter. Here we can see his great love for that otter. He's saying that maybe I'll, you know, go before him and the otter will still remain, but I may leave before him. It is in effect a thraldom to otters. He's saying there is an thraldom to otters. Thraldom means he was basically in control of. The otter was basically trying to control him. How he was trying to control him? Because he was fixated to the otter. Fixated means that he was, you know, attracted to the otter. Otter fixation here means that he was attracted by the otter. There was a great attraction, you know, the otter attracted him. He said that I have shared it with most of the people. Most of the people who have still owned, you know, who still own the otter, they used to share their experiences. You know, when I first saw the otter, I was just fixated. I was just so much attracted by the otter. I was just in love with the otter. And he's also saying the same thing, that I was, you know, in love with the otter. People who love the pets a lot, they have, you know, such kind of thing. If even you own a pet, you know that when you saw your pet for the first time, you were, you know, you were completely in love with that. But here he is talking about something else only. He is saying that otters have a tendency that they are going to fixate on you. You are going to be so much in love with them that you may never want to lose them. Now, the creature that emerged from the sack onto the spacious tile floor of the consulted bedroom resembled most of all a very small, medievally conceived dragon. He was saying, now he's trying to explain, he's saying that when the creature emerged from the, you know, the sack, emerged means came out. When it came out of the sack, when it emerged from the sack on the spacious tile floor, spacious, there was a lot of space on that tile floor of the consulted bedroom, he saw that he resembled, now he's trying to explain, he is, you know, trying to explain the features of this otter. He's saying that he resembles, he actually looks like, resembles means looks like, he mostly looks like a medievally conceived dragon. Medievally conceived means which was in the medieval times. In the medieval times there were dragons and he, you know, actually somewhere he looked like a dragon. From the head to the tip of the tail, he was coated with symmetrical pointed scales of mud armor, between whose tips was visible a soft velvet fur like that of a chocolate brown mole. Now, as I told you, that the otters live in marshes, the swamps, you know, there is a lot of mud in the swamps, and because it had come from a swamp, he was covered in mud. He was, you know, completely covered in mud. It was appearing that as if he had a thick layer. We can also say that there was a thick layer of mud on his body. Now between that, you know, somewhere in the between you could see his soft velvety fur. He was not actually made of mud, so you could see his velvety skin from somewhere. He was resembling like a chocolate brown mole. He shook himself, and I expected a cloud of dust, but in fact it was not for another month that I managed to remove the last of the mud and see the otter as it were in his true colors. He was saying that when he shook himself, like the animals usually do, when the dog, you know, shakes himself, even the dog shakes himself while taking a bath and there is a lot of water, you know, is splashed. Now here he was expecting that when this otter will do like this, when he is going to shake his body, a lot of dust will, you know, emerge from it. A cloud of dust would appear because he was covered from the mud. But he was saying that it was not for another month. He said that I cleaned him for another month. It took me a month to, you know, remove that mud from his body. There was so much mud on his body that it took him almost a month to clean it. Mijbil, as I call the otter, was in fact of a race previously unknown to science and was at length christened by zoologist Latrogale Persipilata Maxwelli or Maxwell's Otter. Persipilata. No, I do not belong to the biology. You know, I do not know the zoology much, so I may not, you know, pronounce it properly, but you may ask it from your zoology teacher and she might tell you. Mijbil, he said that Mijbil the otter, he was not known by the science. It means that the science did not know about this creature. You know that, you know, zoology and botany, there are, you know, it's a great field. There are, you know, thousands of varieties of animals and plants there which the people do not know, which the scientists have not come up, you know, they even do not know much about it. So he was saying that it was a recent discovery. This otter was recently discovered and it was christened, basically named, it was named by this zoologist whose name was Latrogale Maxwelli. That is why this, basically he's talking about the species. The species of this particular otter was Maxwell's otter. He said, for the first 24 hours, Mijbil was neither hostile nor friendly. He was simply aloof and indifferent, choosing to sleep on the floor as far from my bed as possible. Now, as expected, he said that he was neither friendly, neither, you know, not friendly. He was just okay. He was just okay. He was simply aloof. He was detached. He was not actually too much interested. Aloof means he was not interested. He was just, you know, simply like that only. He was just sitting like an ordinary creature. He was not doing anything special. So he said that even he slept far as from his bed. He was not, you know, he was not very familiar to his owner for the first 24 hours. The second night, Mijbil came onto my bed in the small hours and remained asleep in the crook of my knees until the servant brought tea in the morning, and during the day he began to lose his apathy and take a much too keen interest in his surroundings. Now, as he was saying that he was, okay. Now, next day what happened? Next day he was, you know, he came to his bed. He came to his bed to sleep with him because he was, maybe he was feeling more friendly. He was just now okay. The second night he came to his bed in the small hours. Basically, small hours here means the early hours. The early hours of the morning, basically. Okay, 3-4 p.m. The early hours of the morning, and he slept with him whole night. He was sleeping near the crook of his knees, you know, near his knees. He was sleeping like that, like the pets usually do, and he kept sleeping until the servant brought tea. It means that he was there for the whole night, and during the day he began to lose his apathy. He began to lose his apathy because he was becoming more and more friendly. He lost his absence of interest and he started to take keen interest. You know, keen interest, much too keen interest, matlab too much interest. He was taking too much interest in all his surroundings. I made a body belt for him and took him on a lead to the bathroom, where for half an hour he went wild with joy in the water, plunging and rolling in it, shooting up and down the length of the bathtub. underwater and making enough slosh and splash for a hippo. Now he made a body belt for him. What do you know by a body belt? He did not put the belt around his neck. It was not like the dog's belt. It was just basically a body belt. Now using that body belt, he made a lead. It means that the otter was basically following him, and he took him to the bathroom. And here he's trying to explain that what happened basically in the bathroom. Now we are going to know that how much the otter loves water. His love for water is being explained in detail in this chapter. So you might get a question related to that. So it was written that he went wild with the joy in water, because basically they live in water for their whole lives. So he loved water so much so that he was plunging and rolling in it. Plunging and rolling, it means that he was surrounding himself with water. He was just rolling like this and shooting up and down the length of the bathtub underwater. He was just doing like this. It means that he was running in the bathtub. He was just enjoying himself so much, and he was making slosh and splash. Slosh pants means chop chop. He was doing enough chop chop like a hippo does, like a hippopotamus. A hippopotamus is always in the water, and he is doing like that. The hippopotamus enjoys in the water too much. Similarly, the otter was also enjoying in the water. This, I was to learn, is a characteristic of otters. Every drop of water must be, so to speak, extended and spread about the place. A bowl must at once be overturned, or if it will not be overturned, be sat on it and splashed it until it overflows. Water must be kept on the move and made to do things. When static, it is wasted and provoking. It means he was saying that, he was talking about a major characteristic of otter. He said that I didn't know this thing, but the otters, they enjoy water so much that, they love to spread the water everywhere. They love to, splash the water everywhere. If the water is kept static somewhere, it means that the water is stationary. Okay, it is unmoved. They have to move the water. Water must spread. Okay, if there is a bowl of water kept, he is going to either turn it down, either he is going to tumble it, upside down, or he is going to sit in the water and he is going to splosh the water. Splosh the water means that if you sit in a tub full of water, what happens? The water moves out. He is basically, he doesn't want the water to be static. He thinks that if the water is static, it is wasted. It is wasted. It must be overturned. 2 days later, Mijbil escaped from my bedroom as I entered it, and I turned to see his tail disappearing round the bend of the corridor that led to the bathroom. By the time I got there, he was up on the end of the bathtub and fumbling at the chromium taps with his paws. 2 days later, what the author saw, he saw that Mijbil escaped from my bedroom. He escaped from his bedroom, and when he saw, he could only see his tail disappearing into the bathroom. He could basically see Mijbil going into the bathroom, only his tail was visible. And what he did, by the time he got there, he was already in the bathtub. He was sitting in the bathtub and he was fumbling. He was basically fumbling. It means that he was, trying, he was doing efforts to open that chromium tap. He was doing efforts to open the chromium taps with his paws, Fumbling basically here means, the person, when he is, not very perfect, when he is doing something in a very clumsy manner, he was quite clumsy about it and he was not doing it perfectly. Obviously, he's an animal. He doesn't know how to open the taps. So he was doing like this. He was actually struggling with the tap to open. I watched, amazed. In less than a minute, he had turned the tap far enough to produce a trickle of water, and after a moment or two, achieved the full flow. He had been lucky to turn the tap the right way. On later occasions, he would sometimes screw it up still tighter, chittering with irritation and disappointment at the tap's failure to cooperate. He said, I watched and I was amazed. Now he shares that he was quite amazed. He was quite amazed that first the water, first the tap, only a trickle came out. Only, a few drops. Trickle means a few drops. Only a few drops came out of it. It was not a full flow. Then afterwards, the full flow came. The full flow came, it means the otter had learned how to open the tap and how to let the water out. Now he is saying that he had been lucky. It was lucky that he was, opening the tap the right way. Otherwise, on the later occasions, he would close the tap. He would close the tap, and when the water was closed, when the tap was closed, the water was not coming out, and he was very much irritated. He said that on the later occasions, he would screw it tighter and he would chitter with irritation. Chitter means he used to, do like that. He used to, talk in his own way, and he used to get so much irritated, and he was very much disappointed when water didn't come out of the tap. He was just behaving like a child. If the child, if the things do not go according to them, what do? They start getting irritated. They, start shouting, and they start, showing their anger. So the otter was also behaving like a toddler. He was basically behaving like a toddler here. Very soon, Mij would follow me without a lead and come to me when I called his name. He spent most of his time in play. He spent hours shuffling a rubber ball around the room like a four-footed soccer player, using all 4 feet to dribble the ball, and he could also throw it with a powerful flick of the neck to a surprising height and distance. Very soon, it means that Mij, here we can see that Mij was a quick learner. He was a quick learner. That is for sure. And now he's explaining that how much he loved to play with the ball. He said that very soon Mij would follow me without a lead. Without a lead, it means that he would just, answer to his name. He had learned that, okay, my name is Mijbil, and whenever he used to say Mij, he used to just come and follow him. Now, he spent most of his time in play. He used to play a lot. He said he spent hours shuffling a rubber ball. He used to do like that, like the clowns usually do. They, they play with the ball, they dribble the ball like that. He used to play like a four-footed soccer player. He was just appeared to be a four-footed football player, soccer player. It means that a football player, he used to behave like that. With all his 4 feet, like the footballers, they use their 2 feet. He was four-footed, so he used to use all his 4 feet to dribble the ball, and he could also throw it. He could also throw it with his neck, with a sudden push of his neck, okay, with his powerful flick. Powerful flick, it means like that. Like this, to a surprising height and distance. He was surprised that, this much distance the ball could reach just with the push of his neck. But the real play of an otter is when he lies on his back and juggles with small objects between his paws. Marbles were Mij's favorite toys for his pastime. He would lie on his back, rolling 2 or more of them and down his wide flat belly without ever dropping one to the floor. The real play was when he used to lie on his back and he used to juggle the things. He also used to juggle the things like that. Particularly with the smaller objects, he used to play with the marbles. They were his favorite pastime. He would lie on his back, 2 or more of them, and down his wide flat belly. And he never used to throw it. He never used to drop the ball. He was so perfect in doing so. You can also watch the videos on YouTube, you can search for them. And how the otters play. Otters, they just appear like they have been, trained. They look like that they have been trained for years and they have learned this technique. But no, this technique is natural to them. All the otters, they are very playful, like the pandas. We love to watch the panda videos where the pandas are always playing. Their work is only to play and eat every time, and they fall. And similarly, the otters, they are perfect in everything that they do. They are perfect in juggling the balls. So even it is more interesting to see. So you can just search for them on YouTube. The days passed peacefully at Basra, but I dreaded the prospect of transporting Mij to England and to Campus-Fiona. The British airline to London would not fly animals, so I booked a flight to Paris on another airline and from there to London. The days passed peacefully. He was just happy at Basra. At Iraq, he was quite happy. Now he was dreaded. He was not very happy. He was not very excited with this plan. He was dreaded. He was frightened that how am I going to transport him to Campus-Fiona? How am I going to take him there? Because the London flight won't take him. The British airline, it would not take him. British airline, the animals were not allowed on the British airline. So he had to book a flight to Paris. The Paris flight, they were allowing to keep the animals. So he had to go to Paris first, and from then Paris he had to go to London. The airline insisted that Midge should be packed into a box not more than 18 inches square to be carried on the floor at my feet. I had a box made, and an hour before we started, I put Midge into the box so that he would become accustomed to it and left for a hurried meal. Now, the airline insisted, the airline, they said, they, told them that you have to put Mijbil into a box. So it was a condition that if you have to carry the animal has to be in the box, which shouldn't be, longer than 18 inches, and he has to, the animal has to sit into that box, and the box has to be kept near your feet. So this was a condition that the Paris airline had told him. So he said that he specially had a box made. He had to specially, make a box, prepare a box for him. And an hour before he started, just before an hour, they had to start. So he, just for the sake of practice, he kept Mijbil in that box so that he can get accustomed, so that he can become used to it. Okay, he had to, because he had to travel for hours in that particular box. So, Gavin Maxwell thought that, okay, it would be good if he is, he is more comfortable in that box. That is why he was, trying to make him learn. And he left for a hurried meal. He just went out for a meal. And now we'll see that what actually Midge did inside that box and what actually happened. Now, let's check it out. When I returned, there was an appalling spectacle. There was complete silence from the box, but from its air holes and chinks around the lid, blood had trickled and dried. When I returned, now when Gavin Maxwell, when he came back, what did he saw? He saw an appalling spectacle. It means that he saw a shocking scene. What actually happened was there was complete silence in the box. Obviously, Gavin Maxwell was scared that what actually happened inside the box, because there was no voice coming out of the box, but blood was coming out. Blood was coming out of its air holes and its chinks around the lid. He had made some, holes in the lid so that he can breathe, so that Midge could, easily breathe. But the blood was coming out of it. Blood had trickled and dried. I whipped off the lock and tore open the lid. And Midge, exhausted and blood spattered, whimpered and caught at my leg. He had torn the lining of the box to shreds. When I removed the last of it, so there was no cutting, there were no cutting edges left. It was just 10 minutes until the time of the flight, and the airport was 5 miles distant. What did he see? Now he was actually very shocked, Gavin Maxwell. What he did? When he saw the blood, he could not just resist himself, and he tore open the box. He just opened the box, and what he saw that there was blood spattered everywhere. The blood was spread everywhere. And what he did, he saw that Midge was exhausted. He was exhausted. He was very much tired. He was exhausted from the pain and everything, and he caught his leg. He clung to his leg because obviously he needed protection. He was not feeling comfortable inside the box, and he had torn the lining of the box. Maybe he had, put a lining inside the box so that he could feel comfortable. Maybe the lining was of some plastic or some, fabric. Now, when he removed it, when he was trying to remove it, there was blood everywhere. There was blood in his paws. So, he, removed everything, so there were no cutting edges in it. There were no cutting edges, because if there were cutting edges, now Midge could get hurt again. So now, because of all these things, there were only 10 minutes left for the flight. Just 10 minutes. And how much distance they had to travel? They had to travel 5 miles. Yes, the airport was 5 miles far. I put the miserable Midge back into the box, holding down the lid with my hand. What he could do? Now, Gavin Maxwell, he could not do anything. He just had to put Midge. He didn't want to do that, but he had to put Midge inside the box. And now he hurried to the airport. I sat in the back of the car with the box beside me as the driver tore through the streets of Basra like a ricocheting bullet. The aircraft was waiting to take off. I was rushed through it by infuriated officials. Now, he said that I sat back in the car and his driver drove very fast. He was just, driving. He was not driving. He was actually flying like a ricocheting, bullet. Ricocheting bullet means the bullet which changes its distance. It means, when the bullet is left out of the gun, he was just doing like that, and it was moving like that. He was, he had caught up a lot of speed, because obviously they had to, reach at the airport on time. And when he reached the airport, they were infuriated. The officials were very much angry. They were infuriated because he was very late. Now what actually happens is, when you reach airport late, when you do not board the flight on time, the passengers who are sitting already inside the airplane, they are, annoyed with the person, that they say that why the flight is delayed because of you. Just because of one person, the whole flight is delayed. That is why the officials are quite angry, and it actually, sometimes they have to compromise with the security and everything. So that is why the officials were infuriated when Gavin Maxwell didn't reach on time. Luckily, the seat booked for me was at the extreme front. I covered the floor around my feet with newspapers, ran for the air hostess and gave her a parcel of fish for Midge to keep in a cool place. Now he said he covered the floor. Now he covered the floor with newspapers and he placed the box in the newspaper. Now why did he do that? Because he wanted to avoid, if there was blood, if blood came out of that, so the flight is not, it doesn't become dirty and everything. So he put the box on the newspaper. He took care of everything. Then he also brought a fish along with him so that Midge could eat it, during the flight. When Midge would feel hungry, he can grab a bite, he can grab a fish. So he gave the fish to the air hostess so that she could keep it in fridge. Now, I took her into my confidence about the events of the last half hour. I have retained the most profound admiration for that air hostess. She was a very queen of her kind. She suggested that I might prefer to have my pet on my knee, and I could have kissed her hand in the depth of my gratitude. But not knowing otters, I was quite unprepared for what followed. I took her into my confidence. He told her everything. He told her everything, whatever happened in the last half an hour. He told him that, I put him in a box and blood spilled out of it. He explained the whole scenario to that air hostess. Now he is actually praising the air hostess. He is saying that air hostess, he is saying that I, retain the most profound admiration. He admires, he's praising the air hostess, that she was so calm, she was so composed, she was so helpful. She was a queen of her kind. She was so helpful. He is calling her queen. Now, the air hostess suggested her that he can keep the box on his knees, okay, because he, maybe air hostess said that maybe if, the otter was on his lap, he would feel more comfortable. He would not feel comfortable if he was on the floor. Now Gavin Maxwell said that he was so much impressed by the air hostess that he wanted to kiss her hand, but he didn't do so. He prevented himself from doing so because he knew that what otters could do. Otters, they are very unpredictable. He could do anything. So he was saying, maybe if I'll kiss her hand and, something bad happens, so then I have to apologize and everything. So he, he didn't do that. He was, quite scared because what not, otters could do anything. He was so unpredictable. Midge was out of the box in a flash. He disappeared at high speed down the aircraft. There were squawks and shrieks, and a woman stood up on her seat, screaming out, "A rat! A rat!" I caught sight of Midge's tail disappearing beneath the legs of a portly white turbaned Indian. Now Midge was out of the box in a flash. He just came out of the box, very fast. He just came out like a bullet. He was released from the box just at the moment, and what he did, he was just scattered, he just started running on the plane. Now you can see, when people are sitting in the flight, they do not expect an animal, they do not expect to see an animal, and that too a very unusual creature. Because otter was quite unusual, most of the people do not know what otter actually is. People, they try to make their own guesses. Now when people suddenly saw an otter running, they saw that there was a rat. And the people were, they were making squawks and squawks and shrieks. Onomatopoeia is used here. Squawks and shrieks, people shrieks, people were shouting, people were quite, scared of this thing. Now, I caught sight of Midge's tail disappearing beneath the legs of a portly. Portly means fat. He saw that a fat white turbaned Indian was there. White turban means maybe he was a Sardar, and he saw that he was disappearing into his legs, just like a rat. Diving for it, I missed but found my face covered in curry. Perhaps, said the air hostess with a most charming smile, it would be better if you resumed your seat. I will find the animal and bring it to you. Now, to bring it as a joke, you know, he is mentioning the word curry here. You have to notice this thing. Whenever, you know, Britishers, they talk about Indians, they have to mention curry. You know, they like to stereotype the Indian people. I don't know that how true it was, but he mentioned the word curry here, that my mouth, when he actually dived for it, when he tried to catch otter, he landed into curry because he wanted to say that the white turban man, that white Sardar, he was having curry. Okay, he was having curry. So, just maybe in order to make fun of Indians or something, he said that I landed at curry. So, this thing happened with me. And then the air hostess came again to the rescue. Air hostess told him that it's better if you just sit on your seat and I will find Midge for you. I will find the otter for you. You just resume your seat. You just go back to your seat. Okay, go back to your seat. Just sit back on your seat. Again, I returned to my seat. I was craning my neck trying to follow the hunt when suddenly I heard from my feet a distressed chitter of recognition and welcome, and Midge bounded on to my knee and began to nuzzle my face and my neck. He said that when he went back to his seat, obviously he could not be calm and composed. His otter was lost, and otter could, do some harm to the other people. So he was craning his neck. He was just doing like this and that. He was actually trying to find his otter just sitting on the seat. And what really happened after the hunt, there were distressed chitter. He could, listen, distressed chitter. The chitter, who was chittering? The otter was chittering. Otter was, chittering because obviously the air hostess was trying to catch otter and, place him, near his owner. So, near its owner. So, she did this thing. Midge bounded onto my knee. Now, Midge was, reunited with his owner, and he bounded to his knee. He just came back to his knee and he started to nuzzle. Nuzzle means he was trying to, do like this. He was just trying to nuzzle his face and his neck. Further, Midge and I remained in London for nearly a month. He would play for hours with a selection of toys, ping pong balls, marbles, rubber fruit and a terrapin shell that I had brought back from its native marshes. With a ping pong ball, he invented a game of its own, which could keep him engrossed for up to half an hour at a time. He said, Midge and I remained in London. Now they are talking about Midge and the owner's journey in London, what they actually did in London. He said that he remained in London for nearly a month, and they would play for hours, and they would play with a variety of things like toys, ping pong balls. You know what's a ping pong ball? Ping pong ball is a very small ball. When you actually do it like this, when you dribble it, it goes up in the air. Ping pong balls, they have quite a jump in them. So he would play with ping pong balls, he would play with marbles, rubber fruit and a terrapin shell. Terrapin shell is basically a shell which is made out of what do we say? The turtles and everything. They are made of turtles. Terrapin shell that I had brought back from its native marshes. Native marshes means his own place. His place. His place was marshes. Otter had come from the marshes. So the marshes were her native. He brought it from here. With a ping pong ball, he invented a game of its own. Now he is talking about a game that could keep him engrossed for up to half an hour at a time. Our suitcase that I had taken to Iraq had become damaged to the journey home, so that the lid, when closed, remained at a slope from one end to another. Mitch discovered that if placed the ball on the high end, it would run down the length of the suitcase. He would dash around the other and ambush its arrival, stop its arrival, hide from it, crouching to spring up and take it by surprise, grab it and trot off with it to the high end once more. Now what he did, he invented his own, game with a ping pong ball. What he used to do, he was saying that he had a suitcase. The narrator, he had a suitcase, and the suitcase had a kind of a slope. It was damaged on the way to Iraq. So the suitcase was like this. Okay, it had a slope. What Mitch did was that he used to, take the ping pong ball in and he allowed it to roll. Okay, it was normal. But what he did was, Mitch invented another game. He just left the ball, and when the ball was rolling, he just tried to grab the ball on its way. He did not allow the ball to actually reach the bottom. He would just, catch the ball by surprise. He thought that I would, surprise the ball. I would not let the ball to fall down. He was actually, going against the gravity. The gravity, it was pulling the ball. What he did, that he used to, hold the ball in between, and he did not allow the ball to fall down. So this was also a game. Children, they invent, a lot of games, multiple games they invent. So Otter was also like a child. Otter was also like a toddler, and he invented a game on his own with a ping pong ball. Outside the house, I exercised him on a lead, precisely as if he had been a dog. Mitch quickly developed certain compulsive habits on these walks in the London streets, like the rituals of children who, on their way to and from school, must place their feet squarely on the center of each paving block, must touch every seventh upright of the iron railings, or pass to the outside of every second lamp post. Opposite to my flat was a single-storied primary school, along whose frontage ran a low wall some 2 feet high. Now again he's talking about something. He is comparing the otter again with the child, with the school child. The school children, like the children, the rituals of children, He's saying that otter had developed some compulsive habits. Compulsive habits means the habits, where we cannot control ourselves. We actually bound to do those things. Now he is comparing him with the child. When a child comes from school, what he does is that he says, okay, there is a lamp. I will not, walk like this. I am going to step on every second lamp. He'll do like this. He'll do like that. Even when I was a child, I thought, even I had a lot of compulsive habits. I thought that, okay, my house had certain tiles and everything. So I said, thought that I will not, walk like this. I will never ever step on the joining of those tiles. Wherever the tiles are joined, I will not keep my feet on, the lines, because if I'll do so, I'll have a foul. It would be my foul. So I never wanted to foul, and I always walk like this. Similarly, he did like that. He just, he's comparing him with a child who, keep their feet squarely at the center of each paving block, and they have to, touch the every seventh railing. So we do like this. We do a lot of things like that. We have a compulsive habit, and he's talking about the compulsive habit that the otter had developed. He was saying that opposite to my flat was a single-storied primary school. Here he's talking about a primary school, along whose frontage in front, it had a low wall. There was a low wall in front of it, which was only 2 feet high. It was not very high. On his way home, but never on his way out, Mitch would tug me to this wall, jump onto it, and gallop the full length of its 30 yards to the hopeless distraction, worth of pupils and staff within. It is not, I suppose, in any way strange that the average Londoner should not recognize an otter, but the variety of guesses to what kind of animal this might be come as a surprise to me. On his way home, he's saying that on his way home, never on his way out. When he was moving out of the house, he never did that. But when he was coming back on the return journey, what he did that on that wall, he used to jump that wall. He used to bring his owner near that wall, and then he used to jump on it, and he used to gallop. He used to cover the whole yard. And obviously the children, the students, the pupils, the staff, they used to, shout. They used to make noises. They were quite surprised that what kind of an animal it is who comes daily, and he's, running like that. The people were very much scared, because people were not very much familiar with an otter. They thought that maybe it's a, carnivorous animal, or maybe it's very dangerous, it's a wild animal, and it may cause harm to them. So that is why the people used to shout a lot, and especially in a primary school. And primary schools, there are small kids and teachers and everything. So they used to shout a lot. He used to cover the full length of the yard. Obviously, the 30 yards, there were 30 yards in front of the school, and he used to enjoy a lot. He used to cover those 30 yards daily. It was his, compulsive habit. He said that obviously an average Londoner, they bound to make mistakes. They cannot recognize what an otter is, because otter, as I told you, it's very unique. It's a unique creature. It's not very common. People do not usually see a otter walking down the street. So it was, something unusual for them. So they had, they tried to make their guesses, and every guess came as a surprise to them. Otters belong to a comparatively small group of animals called mustelines, shared by the badger, mongoose, weasel, stoat, mink, and other. I faced a continuous barrage of conjectural questions that sprayed all the mustelines, but the otter, more random guesses hit on a baby seal and a squirrel. He said that otters, he is now trying to explain that the otters belong to comparatively small group. They are not very common. So they are in a group called mustelines. Basically, mustelines are those who actually smell, who have a musty smell. So this badger, mongoose, weasel, it comes under the family of that. And people used to, make guesses. Sometimes people used to guess that maybe it is a weasel, maybe it's a badger. They used to, guess close enough to the mustelines. But most of the times, more random guesses were a baby seal and a squirrel. Some people used to say that, is it a baby seal? Is it a squirrel? Is that a walrus, mister? Reduced me to giggles, and outside a dog show I heard a hippo, a beaver, a bear cub, a leopard, one apparently that had changed its spots, and a brontosaur. Now, what other guesses people used to say that, is it a walrus? Do you know what is a walrus? Walrus is very, it's very cute animal. You can search it. Walrus is like, it has, mollusks like this. It has something like that. Outside is its nostril. So, walrus is also, like that. Only it has the similar body. So, people used to say, is it a walrus? Some people even said that it might be a hippo. They also compared it to a hippo, a beaver, a bear cub, a leopard, even a leopard. And some people even called it a brontosaur. Apparently, they said that it's a brontosaur. They had changed its spots. They even started comparing otter to a dinosaur. Midge was anything but an otter, but the question for which I awarded the highest score came from a laborer digging a hole in the street. I was still far from him when he laid down on his stool, put his hands on his hips, and began to stare. As I drew nearer, I saw his expression of surprise and affront, as though he would have me known that he was not one upon whom to play jokes. I came abreast of him. He spat, glared, and then growled out, "Here, mister, what is that supposed to be?" Now what he said, Gavin Maxwell said that he was anything but an otter. People never guess that it's an otter. Nobody made a correct guess that, okay, it might be an otter. People used to make wild guesses. But he is sharing an incident that one day there was a laborer who was digging in the corner of the street. Now when he came, he started, he stopped digging. He just kept his tool aside and he put his hand on his hip. Okay, and he spat and he glared and he was trying to show him, okay, you cannot joke around with me, you cannot fool me around, okay? What is that supposed to be? What is that supposed to be? Actually, that laborer, he didn't make any guess. He was not able to guess. He couldn't even come close to a rat or a squirrel or a leopard or something. He just simply asked him, what is that supposed to be? And, Gavin Maxwell, he was quite, surprised with that answer. He was taken in awe with that answer because he thought that, okay, he has asked me, what is that supposed to be? What this creature actually is? That maybe that laborer, he thought that the creatures like this don't exist. That is why he was, even surprised at its mere existence. That is why he asked him a question like that. So this was all about the otter. Now, let's discuss the important key points. Now, Maxwell, he had a pet dog. After his death, he decided to have another pet. As I told you that he did not. Maxwell, his, pet dog died. So, he decided that he'll not keep a pet again. He'll not keep a dog again because that dog will remind him of his previous dog. In 1956, he went to southern Iraq and there he saw people having otter as a pet. He also decided to keep a pet otter instead of a dog. Now, when he went to southern Iraq, he saw that, okay, everybody is keeping an otter as a pet. It's very common here. So, even I will keep an otter instead of a dog. Maxwell went to Basra to collect his mail, and there he mentioned his desire to one of his friends. When he went to Basra, he had to collect his mail or something. He mentioned to his friend, casually, he said that, okay, even I want to have an otter. And his friend was also not, his friend was equally casual, and he said, okay, you can have an otter. And even he sent him an otter with, there were two Arabs who arrived with the otter, and it was in a sack. It was a gift sent by the same friend whom he had mentioned that I need an otter. He only sent him an otter. The author named it Mijbil or Mij. The author, named him Mij. On the second night, it entered the bed. It enjoyed in the bathtub in bathroom very much. The British airline would not permit him to fly with animals, so he booked a flight to Paris and from there to London. The author named him Mijbil or Mij. On the second night, it entered the bed. Now he's explaining that on the first night, he was not very friendly, nor very hostile. So then on the second day, he went to his bed, and they enjoyed the bath. He also explained that how he used to, play with water. It's very interesting that how, he splashed the water. British airline, now he was explaining his journey, that the British airline, it did not allow the animal to, actually go. They said that the animals are not allowed on the flight. So he had to book a flight to Paris, and from there, from Paris he would go to London. It escaped from the box and disappeared somewhere in the aeroplane. He had made a box for the otter. But he did not feel comfortable in it, and there was blood everywhere. But finally he settled in the box. But as soon as he sat on the flight, he came out of it. Mij was caught with the help of the air hostess. In London, the people could not recognize it, but they guessed about it. Once a labourer saw Mijbil, laid down his tool and said with surprise, "Here, mister, what is that supposed to be?" Now Mij, he finally reached London with the help of that lovely air hostess whom Gavin Maxwell was referring to. And he also said that when he reached London, everybody was surprised. Nobody could recognize that what an otter actually is. People, they made their wild guesses about an otter. And then once the labourer, he saw him and he asked him, oh my God, he was very much surprised. He was caught by surprising answer. Hey, mister, what is that supposed to be? So this is all about the otter. Now, my children, we'll discuss the homework from your sample paper. This question I have taken from your sample paper. Okay, from your specimen paper, I have taken this question. Now, you have read A Tiger in the Zoo. Tiger in the Zoo you have read. I have taught you, and they are saying, basically they have taken a hypothetical situation. Mijbil and the tiger both were looked after by humans. Assume they both meet each other in the zoo and have a conversation about their lifestyle and feelings. Write the conversation as per your understanding of Mijbil the Otter and Tiger in the Zoo. Now, obviously, the person who made the paper, he is assuming that you have read both the chapters. You have read A Tiger in the Zoo as well and Mijbil the Otter. Now they are saying that you have to, imagine a situation that they both meet. Both were taken care of by the humans. Now Mij was, he was kept as a pet, but Tiger, he was caged in he was kept in a prison or something, but he was being taken care of by the human beings. Now they both meet and they were having a conversation and they were sharing about their lifestyle. What do they like, what they don't like, whether they like humans, whether they they don't like the humans. You may begin like this. They have given you a hint as well. Tiger, thanks for visiting me, though I don't usually like the visitors. Mijbil said, oh, I would love visitors, I think. Now Tiger and Mijbil, if you see, now Tiger is actually complaining him. Tiger is saying that, okay, I'm happy to see you. He's saying that, thanks for visiting me though, but I don't like visitors. He is explaining him that I don't like visitors, as we read in the poem. In poem, it was written that he used to ignore the visitors. He did not actually care about the visitors, that who is coming to visit the tiger, because he was actually not very happy inside the prison. But Mij is saying that, oh, I would love the visitors. Why? Because Mij is a pet, Mij is friendly. He is very friendly. He is very friendly. That is why he would love to meet human beings. So, what kind of conversation they can have? You can, what next line you can write? Write you can try to explain the feelings of both Tiger and Mijbil. Now, from the first dialogue, we have assumed that Tiger is aloof. Tiger is not liking the strangers, but Midge is liking the human beings. So you can keep up the conversation like that only. The Tiger can say, okay, the Midge can ask that, why don't you like the visitors? Okay, he will explain, Tiger will explain that I'm not very happy inside the prison. I do not care about the human beings. My place is supposed to be in the jungle. Midge can say that, but I enjoy the company of human beings. You know, I play like this, I do that, I travel along with my master. But Tiger can say that I don't travel, I just remain in a cage or something. Now, this is whole, whole conversation is according to your understanding, what you can write about it. So you just think about this question, you just read this question, again, and you try to ponder upon the feelings of both Midge and Tiger. But you have to, take a hint from this conversation that Tiger is not happy as it is written in the poem, but Midge is very happy, as we can see in the chapter. So you have to begin you have to continue the conversation like this only, and when you are done with it, you can just mention in the comment below how you actually feel the conversation might proceed. So I hope that the chapter is clear to you. It was quite an interesting chapter, and we'll discuss the other chapter in the next video. Now, take care, students. Bye bye. See you in the next video.